Spoke about non-attachment and how yoga enables you to notice the process of ego arising, of ego-motivated action and thought. So what is ego anyway? You know, have you got a good definition of that? Something to think about. Self-identification is definitely one part of it. And if you associate with that, well then you've got all sorts of issues and problems, and you'd be upset and frustrated and so on. And maybe it's that association that's rising, etc. Because of course it's not who you are. How yoga enables you to notice the process of ego rising, of ego-motivated action and thought. And then that is sort of a self-involved action, see? Caught up a bit in yourself. And it's a very fine line, and that's what this question is getting at. So apparently Richard used an analogy of the scientist who is non-attached to his or her hypothesis. That resonated with the questioner here, because you've just started a PhD. Congratulations, almost. So you're starting, and I'm at the tail end after 8 years. So when it comes to passion-driven action, thought, and how this translates into our chosen worldly, spiritual and intellectual pursuits in life, where, according to yoga philosophy, does the ego sit? When we are driven to do, think, be by passion. So you're passionate about your, really passionate about your PhD topic. What's the nature of this passion? Is it your ego at play? I did want to address this question, and you can say a lot of it I touched on, without directly answering in the opening part of this session. Something that made sense to me probably around 20 years ago when I first read it, from Vivekananda, and he was actually discussing this, that in his youth he assumed that if you really wanted to do things, get things done, you had to be passionate, drive, passion, and we hear that in modern culture. But then his realization and experience, and this is what has happened to me, is that because the passion is tied into what you're asking, the sort of ego association, right? The desire for something to come out of it, you see? Even if you say, no, I'm just really into this. So when it translates into this needs to be done, this I must do, this is my path, then it's not driven by passion, but you can have the same, if not even more energy than that passion you're describing, see? So what I'd advise is, because if you're going into PhD, you're going to go through very difficult times, and I speak from experience, and you're going to have ups and downs, and you're going to be doing things that maybe aren't directly related to it, don't satisfy it. You're going to come up against the blockages, problems, things that don't pan out. And passion is not enough. Clarity, why you are doing this, which is basically what you need to apply to yoga practice. I meet people in their first 3 to 5 years of practice, and they're always passionate or into it and so on. It's great. But I wait to see who's around after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, because then it's not about passion. Tuar E.G. puts it nicely, sincerity. Sincerity is key, because it's devoid of ego. Seriousness is full of ego. Sincerity has no ego. Sincerity can see things, it can be light, it can even be humorous, funny, and but it genuinely, it's like a force inside of you that's not dependent on passion. It's a force inside of you that will see it through. That's huge. It'll see it through, and passion is not rich enough to see it really through. Sincerity is rich enough to see it through, and with you remain sincere because you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it and the value of it. There are reasons why you jump in and get into something, and you probably make it through the other end, but all this up and down, and then, I've seen many people do PhDs and then question why did they do it and what it's about, and okay, I have that, but I'll get a different job or something, see? And for me, it's probably, the idea of it was in my head for 20 years. from now, so at least 10 years before even getting around to it. And but the circumstances, which I didn't force, didn't come together till I was clear about, this is what makes sense. This is what it's not even what I need to do. It's what I have no choice, I must do. And that's how I view the duties of life. You know, to avoid them and to go and get all peaceful and calm is non-sincere, regardless of where your passion is at. See? So I make time to have spacious, quiet practice, but the rest of the day is part of my practice because I'm getting done what has to be done. And what will keep you balanced through that, getting it done, is your understanding, interest in it, sincerity, way above pure passion. And you know, I've conducted quite a large amount of empirical research, and there has to be hypotheses. And the problem with the research around yoga, meditation, mindfulness, all these things is there was a bit of, well, we know it's good for us, you know, so the validational aspect. But the thing is, no, absolutely not. If I'm doing research, well, ideally it helps explain in greater understanding, which is good for us all, of how things work out, come together, function, etc., or experienced by different groups of people. Because, you know, definitely in spirituality, yoga, meditation, there's no one-fits-all approach, which has been propagated by certain systems and yoga groups and meditation groups. It's impossible. There's no one-size-fits-all. There's ultimately one experience. There's ultimately an inner state. But we're all at different stages of development, karmic load before that, and therefore have to approach things at different times with different tools and materials. And therefore we start to understand these practices, techniques, exactly, birds and so on, tools, we start to understand them in greater detail for different people at different times. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, that's helpful. And given that alone, you can't expect, oh, it had this outcome. But that's usually what we report and say and publish. So, you know, I mean, I'll be a victim of that too. I'll state that for the record. But the point is, like for some of the things I've done, there is no good outcome. There is no positive result. But it was all this yoga practice, and we measured it this way and that way. And then some of it I'll be saying, yeah, well, it didn't differ from this or this or this. And why? Well, here's some reasons why, you see. And am I disappointed? Was I passionate about it? Passion wasn't enough. Slow, sincere, clarity, to keep at it, stay in it, put it together, state down your hypotheses, leave them alone, continue with the execution. That's like being in the moment now, continue with what I have to do now, you see. And as human beings, we're going to have thoughts of the future, reflect a bit on the past, okay? But of course they can lead you and pull you away, and then that's this self-identification, this ego aspect that's pulling you way out. So come back. See what you have to do. Ideally understand what you're doing, why, and so on. Come back. And then sincerity trumps passion any day. And that's really what the text is saying. So when it talks of abhyasa vairagya, it is repeated, regular practices done with a sense of deep awareness, non-dependent, sincere. The outsider might see some passion, spark, lightness, but for you it's much richer than that. Okay, well I hope that is helpful, and I will stop there. There are other questions, but I'll get into them on the next time. And thank you for listening to this. I will say goodbye from peace, full and calm, a sincere Samahita, okay?